I have really been reminded of the ways that I struggle with the concept and the practice of self-compassion. I've always known this. It's been something that's often been very difficult for me, and it sometimes has felt like I can't get the fire to light when it comes to practicing self-compassion. And at times there's been shame around that, frustration around that. And these last few weeks, it's almost like another layer of that has come, another layer of the resistance, so that even at this point, when I get emails about self-compassion workshops or self-compassion retreats, which I get almost every day, I can feel this kind of bracing and aversion and go away, leave me alone. And I've been really curious about what that is about. And as I've tried to sit with this a bit, I've realized that the whole idea of self-compassion had become a concept loaded with selfing, with pressure, with shoulds, and incorrect assumptions about what self-compassion is. So I noticed I had somewhere developed this belief that I should know what self-compassion is. I should know how to access it. I should know what it feels like for me. There was also a belief that I should always be willing and able to generate and offer self-compassion to myself, and that I should always feel deserving of it. I noticed there was somewhere this belief that self-compassion should look like a warm, big hug energy that I imagine other people experience, and what it seemed like they did. Even though I know that my system doesn't always respond to that energy, doesn't always trust it. My pain doesn't always open to that. So, of course, I didn't want to move towards self-compassion. I had totally lost any curiosity. I wasn't meeting myself where I was. It had become this should modeled with concepts, not something to explore or feel out. And it made me think of a story that some of you may know about Chancha. He's a well-known monk in the Thai forest tradition. And there's this story where he's walking with his monks and he points to a big boulder. And he says, "Is that boulder heavy?" And they're so happy to have an answer that feels easy, that like, yes, yes, of course it's heavy. And he says, "No, it's not heavy unless you try to lift it." It's like, oh, self-compassion for me had become like this boulder, heavy to lift, something to be good at or fail at. Of course, I was resisting moving towards it. And I realized as I was kind of sitting with this and reflecting on this, that a memory kept coming to me again and again. And it happened maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. I was really sick. I had developed symptoms of an autoimmune disease. And everything, it just kept getting worse. I was trying everything, trying to eat well, take care of myself. And it just got worse. I got sicker and sicker. And I went to an appointment with someone I had worked with for a long time. Her name is Chris Quinones. She's an Ayurvedic practitioner and body worker. And she had me lay down on the massage table, and she put 2 fingers here at the middle of my forehead and 2 fingers at my lower abdomen. And she just held them there and breathed for maybe 5 or more minutes. And it was the first time that my pain felt like it could be there. The first time that I actually acknowledged that I was in pain and that I was suffering. And it was just this rush of, I'm so scared. I don't know what's happening. What am I going to do? And all tears and tears. And I just cried. And she stayed there and breathed. And I've been wondering, why does that come up? Why this memory? And I've realized, oh, maybe this is important. Whatever she did could help me understand what I might offer to myself, remembering what felt so holding and helpful for me. Christina Feldman says about compassion, empathy joins hands with stillness, equanimity, mindfulness, and insight in the landscape of compassion. So I'll read that again. Empathy joins hands with stillness, equanimity, mindfulness, and insight in the landscape of compassion. It felt so helpful. Chris was so still, so equanimous. There was empathy there, but it wasn't in the lead. It wasn't in the foreground. And it wasn't like she was there herself trying to do something for me, Catherine. It was like compassion meeting pain. And also it felt very here and now, the immediacy of it. Christina Feldman also writes, we learn we can discern between the story of pain and the actuality of pain. The story is endless. The pain is immediate. We learn we can take the I out of the center of our experience of sorrow. And I would say also, we can take the I out of the center of compassion. Michelle McDonald often says, every time she has a true moment of mindfulness, it's like she's never been mindful before, never known it before. It's that new and immediate and embodied. And so I've been thinking about, how can I utilize this to find a way in for me to whatever self-compassion can be here. First, I think again about Chris touching, just touching my body that was in pain. It feels really important that the first step is that connection or acknowledgement. This is pain. This is pain. Reminds me of what David shared, the story of the Dalai Lama meeting with a couple who had lost their child. And he said, pain, 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 tears, tears, tears. That maybe that just that we can acknowledge and just see what that's like. I've been thinking also about doing no harm, right? So maybe for me, self-compassion isn't a huge warm hug, but what is it to remind myself to do no harm? I have a Dharma buddy named Elisa who said once to me that she felt like she had finally learned not to abandon herself when she was in pain. Not to abandon herself. There's a refraining there. And in that refraining, we can feel into what remains. If I don't abandon my pain, then what is here in relation to it? And then also kind of, I'm thinking about this, and I encourage you to find words or an approach that resonates for you. You might play with the continuum of stillness to words that maybe are a bit more active. So for me, words that are more still are helpful. So can I turn toward, listen, hear my pain or the pain that's here? Can I allow it, breathe with, witness? And for you, you might find that words that are a little more interactive could work. Can I care for this, befriend, hold, soothe, love? Right? And you might think about what has worked for you from another, whose compassion has allowed your pain to feel like it has space to be, or has melted the walls around it. And play with offering that to yourself when pain arises. And then kind of allowing that to be alive, experimental, to back up, to move forward. That kind of ehipasiko, come see for yourself. And maybe notice when you may begin imposing an idea of how things should be. Because what I have felt really is like the root to self-compassion and the arising of it can look and feel very differently for each of us. We can become a trustworthy presence for ourselves by meeting ourselves where we are. So I come back to this quote: empathy joins hands with stillness, equanimity, mindfulness, and insight in the landscape of compassion. And we'll just end with a poem by Wendell Berry. It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And that when we no longer know which way to go, we have come to our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings. So thank you so much.